Hello, good evening and welcome. This is a video to make you think. If you don't recognise these men, they are 8 members of a group known as the Barley Nine. There are actually 10 people so called, 9 men and a woman. The 8 pictured here were all executed in Indonesia. Their crime was to attempt to smuggle around 8 kilograms of heroin into Australia. Most countries don't impose the death penalty for drug smuggling, but the sentences handed down to even small-time dealers can be draconian. For example, as reported in October last year, 2015, in New York a man was sentenced to 8 years in prison and 5 years post-release supervision for selling drugs to an undercover police officer, read agent provocateur. That was with a guilty plea. Heavy sentences are likewise handed down in the UK, and even possessing recreational drugs for personal use can land you in serious trouble. Having said that, this is something I've always wanted to do, but only once. If you do that regularly, you start off looking like this and end up looking like this. In case you don't recognise her, this is the actress Daniela Westbrook, a bad advertisement for a drug that at one time, believe it or not, was given freely to. Take a gander. Now I want to show you something. This is Georgia Littlewood. She died from a paracetamol overdose last year. Tell me about it. She was 17 years old and had taken only 3 times the recommended dose. These substances are all fatal in relatively small doses. Alcohol can be fatal, either by heavy use over a relatively short period, perhaps months, or in a single session, as with the AC/DC frontman Bon Scott. Any substance can kill you if you ingest too much of it quickly, including salt. And this stuff, water. But there are some substances which are properly controlled. I think you'll agree it would not be conducive to anybody's welfare if people were allowed to walk around with ricin or files of botulism in their pockets. But what about marijuana? Noam Chomsky once said the reason tobacco is legal while marijuana is not is that marijuana will grow virtually anywhere, while tobacco needs special conditions and cultivation. Try taxing a legal substance that can be grown virtually anywhere and you'll realise he has a point. Which brings us to the economics of drug prohibition. The United States tried prohibition for alcohol in the early 20th century and it was an expensive failure. Unlike in say Saudi Arabia, where there are strong social taboos against drinking it, any attempt to reduce the problem by legal prescription always makes it worse by driving up the price and directing the control of these substances to criminal gangs. If people are prepared to risk lengthy jail sentences or even execution to supply illegal drugs, then we really should be trying another approach. Even if it is possible to create an entirely drug-free environment, the financial and other costs are so high that we'd be better off without them. Then this money and human resources could be directed elsewhere. Statistics of this nature are notoriously difficult to interpret, but it is probably no exaggeration to say that 25% and upwards of inmates in American prisons are confined because of illegal drugs one way or another. Whether it's possession, dealing, or committing crime to obtain the money to buy drugs. It's time to end the war on drugs. We would all be better off if these substances were legalised. Probably for 6 months or so we'd see people overdosing or jumping out of windows, but after that the price would fall dramatically. which would remove the trade from the hands of organised crime and other predators. Instead, big business would take it over, the tobacco companies and such. The quality of drugs would improve, which would mean fewer deaths from impurities. There would be no need for addicts to shoot up in secret, which would mean an end to sharing needles and other unhealthy practices. Also, the romance would be taken out of it. A lot of the attraction of taking recreational drugs is their illegality. I'm not saying people want to end up in jail over them, but walking around with a spliff in your pocket when you might be stopped by the police, well, that gives some people a rush of adrenaline, especially the young. Of course, we can't have people driving cars, buses or trains while under the influence, much less flying aircraft. But for the rest of us, as I said, the cure is worse than the disease. And by us, I mean all of us.